Good afternoon, everyone. Found this interesting article about a Navy engineer that saw UFOs, aliens, and top secret bases in Antarctica. So it goes on to say, January 2nd, 2015, the editor of the website earthfiles.com received a very unexpected letter from an alleged retired U.S. Navy petty officer, first-class flight engineer. The letter recounts experiences where the anonymous Navy officer, who refers to himself as Brian, recounts his bizarre and extraordinary experiences flying cargo and rescue in Antarctica between the years 1983 to 97. He claims that a collaboration between humans and aliens exists, and that the Antarctica is a major research ground for these incredible collaborations. Brian's high strangeness experiences flying cargo and rescue in Antarctica were in the 1983 to 97 time period and included several observations of aerial silver discs darting around over the Transantarctic mountains. He and his crew also saw a big hole in the ice only about 5 to 10 miles from the geographic South Pole. Pink circle on the map. There's a map below. That was supposed to be a no-fly zone, but during an emergency medevac situation, they entered the no-fly zone and saw that they were not supposed to see an alleged entrance to a human ET science research base created under the ice. Then at camp near Marie Birdland, some dozen scientists disappeared for 2 weeks, and when they reappeared, Brian's flight crew got the assignment to pick them up. Brian says they would not talk and their faces looked scared. In this strange letter, the officer states that he experienced things such as silver discs darting around over the Transantarctic mountains. During an emergency, they entered a no-fly zone and saw an entrance to a human and ET science research base under the ice, and that his crew picked up dozens of scientists who had disappeared for weeks previous. They would not talk and their faces looked scared. He has decided to share this experience. Here's the letter. It's dated January 2nd of 2015. It says, "Hi Linda. I'm a retired United States Navy LC-130 flight engineer that retired after 20 years of service in '97. I have been wanting to write for you a long time about my experience on the Antarctic continent with flying vehicles that I was told not to talk about. I served part of my 20 years in the Navy with a squadron called the Antarctic Development Squadron 6, or VXE-6 as it was also known. I served with this squadron from around 1983 till I retired March of '97. Being a flight engineer and flying more than 4,000 hours in that capacity, I have seen things that most people have not imagined on the continent of Antarctica. The land there seems more alien than earthly. Our deployments to this land started in late September and ended the end of February every year until the squadron was decommissioned in '99. This time of year was summer season when most of science was done to warmer temps and the 24 hours of daylight. During my time in the squadron, I flew to almost every part of the Antarctic continent, including the South Pole, more than 300 times. McMurdo Station, which is 3.5 hours of flying time from the South Pole Station, was the point of squadron's operation during our yearly deployments. Between these two stations is a mountain range called the Transantarctics. With what we called severe clear weather from McMurdo to South Pole, the Transantarctics are visible from the altitudes which the aircraft flew, approximately 25 to 35,000 feet. On several flights to and from the South Pole, our crew reviewed air vehicles darting around the tops of the Transantarctics almost exactly in the same spot every time we would fly by and view them. This is very unusual for air traffic down there due to the fact that the only aircraft flying on the continent were our squadron aircraft. Every aircraft knew where the other aircraft were due to the flight schedules being followed. Another unique issue with the South Pole Station is that our aircraft was not allowed to fly over certain areas designated 5 miles from the station. The reason stated because of air sampling camp in that area. This did not make any sense to any of us on the crew because on 2 different occasions we had to fly over this area. One time due to a medical evacuation on the Australian camp called Davis Camp, It was the opposite side of the continent, and we had to refuel at South Pole, and direct course to this Davis camp was right over the air sampling station. The only thing we saw going on over this camp was a very large hole going into the ice. You could fly one of our LC-130s into this thing. It was after this medevac mission where we were briefed by some spooks, intelligent agents I presumed, from Washington D.C., and told not to speak of the area we overflew. The other time we got close to the air sampling camp, we had navigation and electrical failures on the aircraft and was told to immediately depart the area and report to our squadron commanding officer when we returned to McMurdo. Needless to say, our pilot, aircraft commander, got his butt chewed, and our crew was not the South Pole supply run for over a month. There were many other times we saw things that was out of the ordinary. One outlying camp near Marie Birdland, we dropped scientists and their equipment that was out of communications. Excuse the reading, it's whoever wrote this has no writing skills. Was out of communication with McMurdo for 2 weeks. Our crew flew back to the camp to find out if the scientists were okay. We found no one there and no sign of any foul play. The radio was working fine as we called McMurdo to verify it working properly. We left the camp and flew back to McMurdo as ordered by our CO. A week later, the scientists showed back up to the camp and called McMurdo for someone to come pick them up. Our crew got the flight back there to pick them up since we put them into that camp and we know the terrain and location. None of the scientists would talk to any of the crew on the plane, and to me they looked scared. As soon as we landed back at McMurdo, they, the scientists, were put on another of our squadron aircraft and flown to Christchurch, New Zealand. We never heard about them again. Their equipment that we brought back from the camp was put in quarantine and shipped back to the United States, escorted by the same spooks that debriefed us about our flyover of the air sample camp. Large hole in the ice. I could go on and on about things and situations that I observed during my tour of VXE-6. Talk among the flight crews was that there is a UFO base at the South Pole, and some of the crew heard talk from some of the scientists working at the poles of EBEs working with and interacting with the scientists at that air sampling camp / large ice hole. Here is a map. Davis Station. Hole. This is where the discs are seen. And this is where they pick the missing scientists up. Pretty interesting. Brian, now 59 years old, graduated from an Iowa college with an associate's degree in aviation maintenance technology and an aviation certificate. In 1977, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy and served for 20 years until his retirement in 1997. He provided other files as DD-214 documents and other certificates of service, including this Antarctic Service Medal given to him on November 20th, 1984, as proof of his time in service. So this is the man's stuff. As you can see, a little Arctic man. U.S. Naval Support Force, Antarctica, awards the Antarctic Service Medal of the United States of America to, and for his service in Antarctica in recognition of valuable contributions to exploration and scientific achievement under the U.S. Antarctic Research Program, November 1984. So it has the right signatures. The name was redacted here. And a Lockheed Martin, here's a Lockheed LC-130F Hercules, ski-equipped Hercules, a VX-6 at the Munson Scott South Pole Station. And here's an image, I guess, of him and the crew. There appears to be many secrets hidden in the Antarctica, and we are pretty much hearing different stories every month about military personnel disclosing information about aliens in that part of the world. But what a great secluded part of the world for aliens to keep out of sight from prying eyes, or so they thought. This is a very interesting article because a couple things I want to note is that his position is an everyday working level military position. He's not claiming, top secret clearances or no type of smuggling or nothing like that. This is a serviceman, and he's from Iowa, which leads me to believe that, he's a country boy, and, he just seems to be telling of his experiences, and the details and the experiences that he tells of are, not some extraordinary things. They're just, some things that he's seen. So if in fact what he's seen is true about this hole and Davis Station and just everything that he had seen there, then that gives us a great idea on what exactly is taking place down there. Now, it can only be speculated exactly what the research is about and exactly what the goal is, but I think it's safe to say with the amount of evidence that has been brought forth from Admiral Byrd, from the Nazis, from the United States, from individuals, that the Earth is indeed hollow, and there is some sort of entrance to get there, and we do have basically a gate that you can't cross to get there. So it's obvious that this port of entry, they've got some type of terminal set up, and I believe that the Nazis are the ones that finally let the Americans in, because the Nazis obviously run shit, and it's pretty apparent to me that the Americans wouldn't be there if the Nazis didn't want them there due to their superior technology. I mean, proof of that is in Operation High Jump, where Admiral Byrd's team was basically limped back to the U.S. after they got their ass whooped, and a couple brief skirmishes down there that they have, plenty of evidence to back up. So I believe that, more or less the Americans were like, listen guys, we know that, you guys run shit, and history has been written, this way and da 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 da, but, it was our bad, and we now see things your way, and we want to get down, we want to get involved, so what can we do? And that's how this whole thing transpired, and the Nazis basically let the U.S. in on their operations and on their developments, because if what the Nazis were saying is true, then they are the direct descendants of this race of beings that have blue hair, or blue eyes and blonde hair. So it would only be right that they would be the go-between, because it's like they're cousins, and you're giving your little brother or whatever the dealings with your own kind. So either way, it's all speculation, but I mean, those are pretty fair assumptions to make, considering the evidence that's been presented. So we'll see, but I'm going to be posting some more videos on some other stuff here, so if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. There's a lot of interesting things going on in this channel, and for those of you that are staying tuned, as usual, stay vigilant and stay tuned.